Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. We begin today's satsang with a prayer. This will be followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumarji. The prayer will be chanted by Srimati Sapna Ganesh. A very happy Navaratri to all the devotees. Namo Ramana.
Dakshinamurti Sarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Sheshivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namasatvikam Shivam Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Rama to everyone.
Ekam Aksharam Rudinirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likyate Katham Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yaham Maham Iti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridivisha Manasa Chinvata Majjata Anachalanaro Atmanishto Tavatvam Deham Mrunmaya Jadaatmakam Aham Buddhirna Kasyastito Naham Tattata Bhava Shakti Samaye Siddhatma Sadbha Koham Bhavayuta Kudo Varadhiya Drishtatmanishtatmana Soham Sputitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam So Pitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam. Namo
Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram by Uma Shripati.
नमो रमण कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडं कृतिमहोदधौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवाङ्मना कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जपश्चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगतैषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृदेवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तवादुच्चमन्दत चित्तजं जपाध्यानमुत्तमम् आज्यधारया स्रोतसा समम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परम् वेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनीमता भावशून्यसत् भावसुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मना स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधश्च निश्चितम्.
Namo Ramana. We will now have 3 songs presented from Ramananjali Sangeetam. The first song will be presented by Srimati V. Radha along with Vallabh Srinivasan. The second song will be presented by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan. The third song will be presented by Revathi Sankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Wishing everyone a very happy Dasara. Today we shall be presenting a song written by Sri Sadhom Swami and the music is set by L. Krishnan.
அண்ணாமலை தனிலே அமர்ந்திருக்கும் அரசே அண்ணாமலை தனிலே அமர்ந்திருக்கும் அரசே ஆனந்தமான வாழ்வை அடியேனுக்கு அருள் செய்வாய் ஆனந்தமான வாழ்வை அடியேனுக்கு அருள் செய்வாய் அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா எங்கும் நிறைந்திருந்தே ஏகமயானவரே எங்கும் நிறைந்திருந்தே ஏகமயானவரே ஏகம் நிறைந்த என்னை இன்பம் அடைய செய்வாய் ஏகம் நிறைந்த என்னை இன்பம் அடைய செய்வாய் அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா சொல்லி விளக்க உன்னை சொற்களுண்டோ உலகில் சொல்லி விளக்க உன்னை சொற்களுண்டோ உலகில் ஜோதியுள் ஜோதியாக ஜொலிக்கும் சுய சுடரே ஜோதியுள் ஜோதியாக ஜொலிக்கும் சூரியன் சுடரே அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா 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 நமோ ரமண.
रमणं गुरुं नमामि रमणं गुरुं नमामि रमणं गुरुं नमामि रमणं गुरुं नमामि देवी शक्तिरियं दृशो श्रुतजनध्वान्तक्षय दायिनी देवी श्रीरियम् अम्बुजाक्षमहिषी वक्त्रे सहस्रच्छदे देवी ब्रह्मवधूरियं विजयते व्याहारगूढा परा विश्वाचार्य महानुभाव रमण त्वां सौतुक प्राकृतः रमणं गुरुं नमामि रमणं गुरुं नमामि रमणं गुरुं नमामि रमणं गुरुं नमामि सोऽहं जातो रमण भगवन् पादयोस्ते धविष्टो यद्यप्यस्मिन् महति समये शक्तिदास्ये प्रवृत्ते सूर्यस्येव ज्वलितमहसो दूरगां नाथ शक्तिम् विश्वस्यार्यां तव मम मनो वीतदुःखं तथापि रमणं गुरुं नमामि 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 रमणं गुरुं नमामि.
ओम
नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. We remember the three Devis to whom we offer worship during the Navaratri: Durga, Lakshmi and Saraswati. Here, today's song which I present describes about how Ramana is Durga, how Ramana is Lakshmi, how Ramana is Saraswati. Durga in the form of Meenakshi, Kamakshi and Annapurneshwari. Lakshmi in the form of Adi Lakshmi, Dhanya Lakshmi and Bhagya Lakshmi. Saraswati in the form of Gayatri, Savitri and Atma Vidya Saraswati. This song is written by Dr. Sharda Natarajan and the music for this is by Dr. Ambika Kameshwar. Beautifully, the music for this song has been divided into three different ragas. The first raga is Kalyani, Kalyani is also a form of Durga Parvati. The second set of few ragas which describes Lakshmi is in Shri Raga. Shri also means Lakshmi. Then the last set of three Devis are worshipped through the Saraswati Raga. It's a Raga Malika Beautifully set by Dr. Ambika Kameshwar. करुणा कटाक्षदी आनंद हरि सुवताई मीनाक्षिनी रमणा ताई मीनाक्षिनी करुणा कटाक्षदी आनंद हरि सुवताई मीनाक्षिनी रमणा ताई मीनाक्षिनी ಬೇಡಿದೆಲ್ಲವ ನೀಡಿ ಬಯಕೆಯನ್ನೇ ನೀಗುವ ತಾಯಿ ಕಾಮಾಕ್ಷಿನಿ ರಮಣ ತಾಯಿ ಕಾಮಾಕ್ಷಿನಿ ಬೇಡಿದೆಲ್ಲವ ನೀಡಿ ಬಯಕೆಯನ್ನೇ ನೀಗುವ ತಾಯಿ ಕಾಮಾಕ್ಷಿನಿ ರಮಣ ತಾಯಿ ಕಾಮಾಕ್ಷಿನಿ ಜ್ಞಾನದ ಹಸಿವಾಗ್ನಿಯ ಅಮೃತ ಉಳಿಸಿ ತಡಿಪ ಅನ್ನಪೂರ್ಣೇಶ್ವರಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಅನ್ನಪೂರ್ಣೇಶ್ವರಿನಿ ಜ್ಞಾನದ ಹಸಿವಾಗ್ನಿಯ ಅಮೃತ ಉಳಿಸಿ ತಡಿಪ ಅನ್ನಪೂರ್ಣೇಶ್ವರಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಅನ್ನಪೂರ್ಣೇಶ್ವರಿನಿ ಮೀನಾಕ್ಷಿನಿ ಕಾಮಾಕ್ಷಿನಿ ಅನ್ನಪೂರ್ಣೇಶ್ವರಿನಿ ರಮಣ 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 ಆದಿಯಿಲ್ಲದ ಮಾಯ ವ್ಯಾಧಿಯನ್ನು ನೀಗಿಸುವ ಆದಿಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಆದಿಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ಆದಿಯಿಲ್ಲದ ಮಾಯ ವ್ಯಾಧಿಯನ್ನು ನೀಗಿಸುವ ಆದಿಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಆದಿಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ದೇಹ ಬಯಲಲಿ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಸುಗ್ಗಿಯ ನೀಡುವ ಧಾನ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಧಾನ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ದೇಹ ಬಯಲಲಿ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಸುಗ್ಗಿಯ ನೀಡುವ ಧಾನ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಧಾನ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ಬಡತನದ ನೆನಪಳಿಸಿ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣಗೊಳಿಸುವ ಭಾಗ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ಬಡತನದ ನೆನಪಳಿಸಿ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣಗೊಳಿಸುವ ಭಾಗ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ಆದಿಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ಧಾನ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ಭಾಗ್ಯಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ತಾಯಿನಿ ರಮಣ 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 ಹರಿವನ್ನೇ ಅರಿವಿಂದ ಕಾಣುವ ಪಥ ತೋರಿ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಗಾಯತ್ರಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಗಾಯತ್ರಿನಿ ಅರಿವನ್ನೇ ಅರಿವಿಂದ ಕಾಣುವ ಪಥ ತೋರಿ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಗಾಯತ್ರಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಗಾಯತ್ರಿನಿ ಕಾಲನ ಎದುರಿಸಿ ವಿಚಾರಿಸಿ ಗೆಲ್ಲುವ ದಾರಿ ನೀಡೋ ಸಾವಿತ್ರಿನಿ ರಮಣ ದಾರಿ ನೀಡೋ ಸಾವಿತ್ರಿನಿ आत्मविद्या सरस्वतिनी रमणा आत्मविद्या सरस्वतिनी ಕಲೆಗಳೆಲ್ಲವೂ ನಿನ್ನೊಳಗಿರಲು ಬಯಸುವ ಆತ್ಮವಿದ್ಯಾ ಸರಸ್ವತಿನಿ ರಮಣ ಆತ್ಮವಿದ್ಯಾ ಸರಸ್ವತಿನಿ ಆತ್ಮ ಬೆಳಕಾದ ಗಾಯತ್ರಿನಿ ಆತ್ಮಪಥ ತೋರ ಸಾವಿತ್ರಿನಿ ಆತ್ಮವಿದ್ಯಾ ಸರಸ್ವತಿ ನೀ ರಮಣ ಆತ್ಮ ಬೆಳಕಾದ ಗಾಯತ್ರಿನಿ ಆತ್ಮಪಥ ತೋರ ಸಾವಿತ್ರಿನಿ ಆತ್ಮವಿದ್ಯಾ ಸರಸ್ವತಿ ನೀ ರಮಣ ವಿದ್ಯಾ ಸರಸ್ವತಿನಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾ ಸರಸ್ವತಿನಿ ರಮಣ ವಿದ್ಯಾ ಸರಸ್ವತಿನಿ. Namo Ramana. We will now have the reading and sharing from the book Ramana's Muruganar by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we have begun reading from Ramana's Muruganar, a birth centenary offering compiled and edited by our founder president, Shri A.R. Natarajanji. We have begun the account of Kanakamal, who was with Muruganar Swamigal and who has learned Bhagavan's teachings from Muruganar Swamigal after the Mahasamadhi of Bhagavan. She writes, and we continue our reading, meeting the Guru. Quite appropriately, by Bhagavan's grace, we will be reading Muruganar's special relationship to his mother during this period when we are celebrating the power of the Divine Mother. We'll be reading that segment also quite appropriately this day. Meeting the Guru. Muruganar came to Tiruvannamalai for the first time on Thursday, the 21st September 1923. So this year is the centenary of Muruganar's coming to Sri Ramanashramam. This book is offered in his birth centenary. During the Michaelmas vacation, he was then wholly absorbed in the thought of Bhagavan. We had seen that he was given the books Sri Arunachala Stuti Panchakam and Who Am I by his father-in-law Sri Dantapani Swamigal, and he has gone through those books very thoroughly, is totally consumed by them. While proceeding to Ramanashramam, he entered the gigantic Arunachaleshwara temple. He feasted his eyes on the image of Lord Shiva and the Divine Mother named Apita Kuchamba there. He then recalled that one should not go empty-handed to meet a great sage. Words spontaneously flowed, and he immediately composed his first work on Ramana, titled Desiga Padigam. Surprisingly, even though he had not yet met Ramana, we find him describing in these verses the matchless beauty of form and the unique state of Ramana. On reaching Sri Ramanashramam, Muruganar was perplexed as to what he should do. Not having visited any other ashram earlier, Muruganar was standing with these lyrics in hand, wondering how best he could place this poetic offering at Ramana's feet. At that time, Bhagavan came out of the hall to go towards the hill. It was as if the divine had arranged for the Guru to meet the disciple. I'll read that again. On reaching Sri Ramanashramam, Muruganar was perplexed as to what he should do. Not having visited any other ashram earlier, Muruganar was standing with these lyrics in hand, wondering how best he could place this poetic offering at Ramana's feet. At that time, Bhagavan came out of the hall to go towards the hill. It was as if the divine had arranged for the Guru to meet his disciple. As soon as he saw the comely form of Ramana, Muruganar stood rooted, lost in its beauty. Bhagavan poured his grace on him by his look. They thus stood exchanging glances for some time. On remembering the poems he had brought, Muruganar attempted to read them. However, due to excess of emotion, tears began to flow profusely and he could hardly read. The words were smudged with his tears. Seeing this, Ramana took the verses from him gently and read it himself. Muruganar stood transfixed, lost in the ecstasy of joy. What happened during this trip, the first trip, has been described by Muruganar himself. It would be best to quote his words. Within a few days of my reaching Tiruvannamalai, there was a distinct change in me, though I could not put it into words. This much can be said. I was immersed in bliss. I used to sit in the presence of the Maharishi and single-mindedly think of him. Once I saw his body as surrounded by a powerful light. I was completely taken in by this vision. At that time, Kunju Swami, Dandapani Swami and Arunachala Swami were there. My individuality was submerged in waves and waves of indescribable joy. However, even though wide awake, the whole world appeared like a dream. Suddenly, I was gripped by the fear as to what would happen if I lost all attachments. I was also scared at the thought that my mother would be left without any support if I allowed this surging joy to overcome me. I was convinced that if I allowed myself to be taken in by this mood, I would lose my hold on all my worldly attachments and leave my mother in the lurch. Gripped by this figure, I told Bhagavan, I am not able to hold the effect of your powerful presence. I wonder how your mother was able to retain you in her womb for 10 months. Muruganar is saying to Bhagavan, I am not able to hold the effect of your powerful presence. I wonder how your mother was able to retain you in her womb for 10 months. Prattling thus, Muruganar came out of the hall. Noticing Bhagavan's eyes and feeling that Bhagavan wanted them to join Muruganar, Kunju Swami and Arunachala Swami also came out and joined him. They walked with him quite a distance and told him about the wonderful qualities of Ramana. Even so, his mind continued to be agitated and he walked up and down the Chengam road up to the early hours of the morning. Notwithstanding his resolve, he could not leave Tiruvannamalai. The pull was too strong. He returned home only after a few days. Subsequent visits. After some months, during the Christmas vacation, he returned to Sri Ramanashramam. While meditating in Bhagavan's presence, he had a repetition of his earlier vision of the master being surrounded by an unmistakable halo. He was again overwhelmed by the thought that his mother would be left without support if he allowed himself to be swayed by the powerful influence of the Maharishi. So he returned to Madras the same night. During Shivratri of 1924, Muruganar brought his mother for the darshan of Bhagavan. She was well received. Muruganar too was absorbed in meditation. Thereafter, he availed of every opportunity to come to Bhagavan. Once, he also brought all the students of his class. Love for Bhagavan seeped in completely and he lost his individuality in Bhagavan. When returning home, he would struggle like a bee which had fallen into honey. Such was his passion to be with Ramana. He would start to return to Madras, but would come back without doing so. Sometimes he would pace up and down the platform and would not get into the train. When asked on return whether the train did not come, he would reply with childlike simplicity that though the train had come, he just could not bring himself to board it. Sometimes Bhagavan would send someone with him to the station to ensure that he did get into the train. Mother's Mukti. Muruganar was literally tossed between his overwhelming love for Bhagavan and his filial duty towards his mother, whom he loved dearly. It was always heart-rending for him to leave Ramana. What else? But what could he do? He was the sole support of his old mother. His mother passed away in 1926. Muruganar performed properly all the rites prescribed in the scriptures for her obsequies. He took her bones to the sacred Dhanushkoti and merged it in the sea there. He brought a portion of the ashes of the same to Sri Ramanashram. Keeping it near the Ilupai tree in the entrance of the ashram, he reported the matter that he has brought those remains. He reported the matter to Ramana. Bhagavan remarked that the nearby Agni Tirtham would be a good place to immerse the remaining portion of the bones brought by him. He accordingly did so. Muruganar's ardent love for his mother is seen from his dedicatory verse number 12 of the Garland of Guru's Sayings. The Guru Vachaka Kovai verse reading, "She gave me birth and gave me the freedom from ignorance, bliss eternal. To this most innocent mother of mine, to her dear memory is this treatise duly dedicated. She gave me birth and gave me the freedom from ignorance, bliss eternal. To this most innocent mother of mine, to her dear memory is this treatise Guruvachika Kovai duly dedicated." He also dedicated his Ramana Sannidhi Murai to her. It was the firm belief of Muruganar that his mother had attained liberation by the grace of Bhagavan. It was the firm belief of Muruganar that his mother had attained liberation by the grace of Bhagavan. If one reads his poems on his mother in Ramana Devamalai, one is bound to be moved to tears. A parallel to this love is seen in the life of Saint Patinathar, who too had a deep love for his mother. I'll read that verse again, then we'll continue. "She gave me birth and gave me the freedom from ignorance, bliss eternal. To this most innocent mother of mine, to her dear memory is this treatise duly dedicated." Permanent stay at Tiruvannamalai. His mother's death cut the last bond he had with the world. In July 1926, he resigned his job as a Tamil teacher, abandoned his home, and shifted permanently to Tiruvannamalai. In the beginning, he stayed in Palakottu. He would beg for alms in the streets of the town. He had to go without food on several days. Though he was a poet par excellence, he had not read any Vedantic works. He learned them for the first time from Bhagavan himself, along with Lakshman Sharma of Pudukkottai. His photographic memory was of great help in this. Noticing his vast erudition and devotion, the then head of Ishanya Mutt, Natesha Swami, requested him to expound some of Manikavachakar's works. Muruganar agreed and would teach the lessons in the morning. While returning to the ashram from there, Natananandar would join him near the temple. On one occasion, after Muruganar wrote the first 4 lines of a new song, his inspiration deserted him. Natananandar completed it, then told about this to Ramana. When told about this, Ramana humorously remarked, "What a confluence of poetic talent. Let Natanananda write the first 4 lines of a poem tomorrow. Muruganar can complete the remaining lines." They did so accordingly and placed it before Bhagavan for his approval. That is the relationship between Bhagavan's devotees and disciples, that our works are completed from each other's contribution, even without knowing that we are contributing. Just the natural inspiration that we get, that we share, that completes each other's journey, is the Leela that is played out between Natanananda Swami and Muruganar Swamigal. That how their poem is completed, that way our spiritual journeys are completed by these satsangs that we have. Muruganar used to say that begging for alms was a good antidote for the ego. Muruganar laid great stress on purity. His clothes, including the one used for bhiksha, would be spotlessly clean. Before eating the food brought by alms, Muruganar would keep washing his hands and feet with sand in the tank of Palakattu. This would take quite a while. Sometimes the monkeys which abounded there at that time would eat his food and he would have to go hungry. Noticing this predicament of Muruganar, Sabapati Pillai, the priest of Ganesha temple there, invited Muruganar to stay with him and persuaded him to do so. The Ishanya Mutt Seva of Muruganar, I am not reading this from the book, which is mentioned here, actually is once again connected when Meenakshi Ammal, his wife, is taken care of by Bhagavan. Meenakshi Ammal comes to stay in the ashram, and once she says to Bhagavan, "Bhagavan, I don't even have a proper sari. What kind of a life I am leading? This is the last sari I have. This is torn in different places." And she is desolate. Then Bhagavan sends word to Ishanya Mutt. And the writer of that article connects that it is Muruganar's speeches and the seva in Ishanya Mutt that were worthy, and the sari is asked for from the Ishanya Mutt by Bhagavan, and they happily send it. That is given to Meenakshi Ammal's distress. These great leelas have happened throughout to our great bliss and joy. It is our great privilege to read these words of Kanakamal about Muruganar Swamigal. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
We will now have a session of self-enquiry, which will be led by Sri Dileep Simha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamraravindeksham Bhaktabishtavarabhaya Pradakaram Kaupinamurti नेत्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरम् योगासनाध्यासितम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षातात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युतव पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. We will commence the Atma Vicharam by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. I'll be reading his Upadesham from the book Guru Vachaka Kovai, from the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The topic is the greatness of renunciation. Verse 831. Only those who have extricated themselves from the multitude of things that, like a dream, appear within them, by regarding those things as mere imagination, will root out the deception, the illusory corruption. None of the others will know the means to put an end to that corruption. Only those who have extricated themselves from the multitude of things that, like a dream, appear within them, by regarding those things as mere imagination, will root out the deception, the illusory corruption. None of the others will know the means to put an end to that corruption. In this beautiful verse, Bhagavan is making the recognition of the truth so simple. As when the dream is going on, we consider or believe that the dream is very, very real. But upon waking, in the dream we have no proper control of what is going on. But when we wake up consciously, then we know that the whole thing was just a mere imagination. Likewise, the Atma Vichara that Bhagavan has given it to us, whenever we are carried away by multitude of things, thoughts, and everything or wherever there is this seeing, seer, seen, these divisions and objects are present, we can very much take it for granted that we are in a sort of a waking dream. Therefore, the enquiry, to whom is this, who am I, will swiftly bring the recognition that all of that was only thoughts, imagination. But the pure consciousness that we were, and it was all in the consciousness, happened in the consciousness, recognized by the consciousness. So all that we experienced was the unchanging consciousness, in which on that screen these thoughts, the movies came and went away. Therefore, this Atma Vichara brings a swift realization of the truth. So, and I was just watching some videos, and in that it was being very beautifully said, only when there is problem, then there is the opportunity to apply the knowledge. And that Bhagavan has brought it so beautifully. When we are in the problem of multitude, then the knowledge that actually there is only one truth, that is when we can apply it. And therefore Bhagavan has given us this Atma Vichara. He says, diligently bring this enquiry. And with that diligent enquiry comes the recognition then and there that unnecessarily I was getting carried away by an imaginary thought. And when we let go that, when we completely understand that all thoughts are nothing but the imagination, therefore, when we completely let go the whole set of imagination without even bothering to look at it anymore as to whether it is a good thought, a bad thought, an ugly thought, or a spiritual thought, when we recognize it is all nothing but a moving thing, and we are that unchanging consciousness, unchanging being. And this enquiry here and now brings it. And Bhagavan goes a step further, that only such person who has recognized that this is all nothing but imagination like a dream will be the only person who can put an end to this corruption. It's a corruption where there was absolutely nothing happening. The screen alone is. The thoughts which appear and try to create some disturbance, corruption, is seen as just an imagination. And by that recognition, conscious recognition, only the corruption can go. On the contrary, if we take the corruption to be real, and therefore we want to read, know, do so many things in that same plane of corruption, Bhagavan calls it is like holding a crocodile to cross the river. So this recognition that whatever I do in holding on to this area of knowledge and ignorance, I am still going to be holding on to the crocodile. And therefore, when I let go both knowledge and ignorance as to whom is this, by questioning and recognizing the absolute truth, the uncorrupted, the one and only reality which never undergoes any transformation whatsoever, no matter how much movie is played over it, and recognizing that as oneself, then the corruption stops, it ends. And that is the real renunciation, says Bhagavan here. The renunciation of the entire imaginary and abiding in what we really are here and now. With His abundant grace, with which alone we have come to this most direct path for the next 10 minutes, no matter how many thoughts come, no matter whatever is the nature of those thoughts, whether it is good, bad, ugly, spiritual, let us diligently recognize it is all nothing but thoughts, an imagination, a corruption, a seeming corruption on that which is uncorrupted. And by inquiring to whom is this, who am I, we get back to that and that truth which alone is. With this abundant grace, let us practice Atma Vicharam for the next 10 minutes. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Anma Bodham by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande ji.
Oh. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Dhyanamoolam Guru Pujamulam Padam Mantramulam Vakyam Mokshamulam Guru Mokshamulam Guru. Namo Ramana. We're doing Manana on Anma Bodha, and the last satsang we did Manana on verse number 23. We'll do a little short recap of that. Attachment, desire, pleasure, pain, etc. arise when intellect is present. They do not exist in deep sleep when intellect is absent. Hence they are of intellect but not of Atman. The four experiences enumerated herein, namely attachment, desire, joy and sorrow, are all interrelated. When you lack something in life, you feel a sense of incompleteness or unfulfillment. This feeling causes your intellect to devise a method of filling up the void and thereby regaining a sense of completeness or fulfillment. Such a plan or scheme entertained by the intellect causes a stream of thoughts to flow from you to the objects of acquisition. In the initial stage, when the flow of thoughts, there the thought flow is called raga. And then raga, which is attachments. When the same thoughts gather more bulk and momentum, the flow intensifies to become a desire, ichha. When a desire is fulfilled, it produces a joy, sukha, and when it remains unfulfilled, it causes sorrow or dukkha. If Atman is neither a doer nor an enjoyer, then what exactly would be the nature of the Atman? This doubt is now answered by describing the Atman. That's what we will do today. We'll try and understand in the verse number 24. I request Sapna to kindly chant the verse number 24, please.
Yes, sir. Prakasharkasya to yasya shaityam agneyatoshmata swabhava satchitananda nitya nirmalatatmanaha. Prakasharkasya to yasya shaityam agneyatoshnata swabhava satchitananda nitya nirmalatatmanaha. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna.
As luminosity is the nature of sun, coolness of water, and heat of fire, so existence, knowledge, bliss, activity, eternity, and purity are the nature of Atman. Read this again. As luminosity is the nature of sun, coolness of water, and heat of fire, so existence, knowledge, bliss, in eternity and purity are the nature of Atman. The word Swabhava means one's essential nature. The essential nature of the sun is luminosity. The sun cannot exist without light. So also the nature of water is coolness. That of fire is heat. Similarly, the nature of the Atman is described as existence, knowledge, bliss, Satchit Ananda, eternal, Nitya, and pure Nirmala. Satchidananda describes the Atman in terms of its manifestation through the equipments of the gross, subtle, and causal bodies. Through the gross body, the Atman expresses itself as mere existence, through the subtle body as intelligence, Chit, and through the causal body as bliss, Ananda. The entire cosmos is made up of animate and the inanimate. The infinite variety of inanimate things which are spread over not only in the universe but in others as well merely exist without any life in them. The total inert matter has mere existence, Sat, which is said to be an expression of Atman in the medium of the total gross bodies. The animate beings in the cosmos are either awake or sleeping. The beings that are awake are the same Atman expressing in subtle bodies as intelligence, Chit. The beings that are asleep enjoy a relative peace and bliss. So long as you are awake, your mind remains agitated because of your identification with the changing perceptions, emotions, and thoughts. Once you go to sleep, all your mental agitations cease and you experience bliss till the sleep lasts. This state of relative bliss, Ananda, is in beings is the expression of Atman in the causal bodies. Thus the entire cosmos is nothing but an aspect of Atman, expressing itself through the total material bodies as Satchit Ananda, existence, knowledge, bliss. The magnitude and splendor of the expression of Satchidananda leaves one spellbound by this description, further suggests something greater, something inconceivable beyond the functions, the frontiers of the infinite expanse of the cosmic expression, perception, that something is the reality, which is the Atman. Nitya means eternal, which indicates that the Atman was existing from the infinite past, is existing at present, and will exist in the infinite future. Nirmala means not dirty. Mala means dirt. A substance is said to be dirty if there exists in it something other than it. The Atman is all-pervading. There exists nothing other than it to pollute it. It is therefore ever pure. Mala or dirt may also refer to the vasanas, in which case Nirmala would mean without vasanas. Atman is the spiritual core of an individual which lies beyond the bliss sheath, Ananda Kosha, consisting of vasanas. So Bhagavan says beautifully about this, about the Atman. What's the nature of the Atman? He says beautifully is existence, knowledge, bliss, eternity and purity are the nature of the Atman. It's like I give the example of Ganga. They say Ganga is pure. Ganga is But if you ask an ordinary person who goes and sees all the dirt on the Ganga, what he says, Ganga is very dirty. No, it's not pure. But what's the essential nature of Ganga? It's pure, it's mother. It's for all the people who live on the banks of Ganga, Ganga is the mother. So mother can never be impure. So the point is, when you see all the physical aspects, that's when you think that, there is dirt and this and that. But at a core level, Ganga is absolutely pure. And once you understand that, same thing applies here also, that the Atman is also eternal. It's always been there. It's been there. It is there right now and will always be there. So it's never not present, and it's pure, absolutely pure, and it is existence, consciousness, bliss, absolute. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Chatvarimshat by Sri Ujwal Jagadeesh.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We have been meditating on the verses of Ramana Chatvarimshat written by Ganapati Muni and compiled and titled Ramana Chatvarimshat by Ramana himself. Na karuna guna tava vidampate hridaya tejasa sahaja vaivate tava tanurjvala tyanaga vidyuta tava drigata lasati bhasvata kabhalitam manas tava vibodhra tvamasi santatam vilasito muda bhuvana pupater bhagavata krite bhavasi pachako yamavatampate narapashunimanahmitadayan parashivaudanam vitanushepacan narapashuniman ahamitadayan parashivaudanam vitanushepacan karune gunavalla ninage odayane hridayadi ಹೊಳೆಯುವ ಸಹಜ ಸ್ವರೂಪವೇ ನಿನ್ನಮಲ ದೇಹವು ಮಿಂಚಂತೆ ಹೊಳೆವುದು ನಿನ್ನನಂತ ನೋಟವು ರವಿಯಂತೆ ಮಿರುಗುವುದು ಪ್ರಭುವೆ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಮನವ ಹೃದಯ ನುಂಗಿತು ಆನಂದದಿ ಹೊಳೆಯುತ್ತ ನೀನಿರುವೆ ಎಂದಿಗೂ ಭುವನದೊಡೆಯನಾದ ಭಗವಂತ ಸೃಜಿಸಿದ ಪಾಚಕ ನೀನೇ ಸಂಯಮದ ಅರಸನೇ ಮನುಜ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಯ ಅಹಂಕಾರವ ಕಡಿದು ಪರಶಿವಗೆ ಭೋಜನ ನೀ ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡಿಸುವೆ ಮನುಜ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಯ ಅಹಂಕಾರವ ಕಡಿದು ಪರಶಿವಗೆ ಭೋಜನ ನೀ ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡಿಸುವೆ. Ganapati Muni calls Ramana as a cook who has been created by the Bhuvana Bhupati, the Supreme Lord of the universe. And why has he created this cook? So that this cook can slay the ego of the beast called the man. And that slayed ego, he cooks it and prepares food to be offered to the Supreme. Parashiva, Bhagavan, is that great cook who has given each one of us that same recipe of making the food to the Supreme. Once when Ramana used to have food and everybody used to wait to collect Ramana's leaf plate so that they can eat the leftovers from the plate of Ramana, and say, I have had the fortune of eating the prasadam from Bhagavan. And Bhagavan knew this. This was happening. All the devotees are waiting to tear a part of the leaf, because Ramana never left anything on the plate. The plate used to be, the leaf plate used to be cleanly eaten. But the devotees were waiting to take a part of that plate. Ramana knew this, and he used to fold his own leaf plate and take it very, very far and throw it away. And when devotees asked Ramana, we want your prasadam, Ramana used to say, the true prasadam is when you eat without ego, then whatever you are eating becomes prasadam. So Ramana has come to remind us that the prasadam, the true prasadam that we offer to the Supreme is to eat without ego. When you eat without ego, whatever you eat is being eaten by the Supreme who is there within, and that becomes prasadam. And Ramana, as soon as this ego rises, and he says that this ego rises within us as the thought. Ramana says, as soon as the thought arises, do not let this thought pursue. Do not pursue the thought and make it grow and have many, many thoughts. Immediately as the first thought arises, ask, for whom is this thought? Slay that thought with the question, for whom is this thought? And ask. And the answer is, the thought is for me. And quickly that slayed ego, which has appeared in the form of the thought, has to be slayed and turned back and offered back to that Supreme who is there within, who is ready to accept that food that we are giving him, the food of the slayed thought, the slayed ego, he is ready to accept. So Ramana has come into our lives to slay the ego with the self-enquiry, with the question, who am I? And make us ready and make us cooked properly, baked properly, so that we become apt to be offered to the Supreme. In one of the instances, when Ganapati Muni, after getting the Upadesha from Bhagavan Ramana, he makes a pratignya, he makes a promise to Mother Uma that he is going to write 1,000 verses on Uma, which has to be titled Uma Sahasram. And he starts writing it within another 10 days or 20 days. He keeps a time frame and he is writing this Uma Sahasram. And quickly he is Kavya Kanta Ganapati Muni, the Kavya is there in his Kanta. So he writes all these verses one after the other. So 800 verses have been written and 200 verses are left. But Ganapati Muni notices that his hand, there is a hurt which is formed, a boil on his hand. So he cannot write. And he's been waiting, and the doctor appears in a magical way, and doctor says, I got a dream saying that I have to come and operate the hands of a Muni. And I came to see Bhagavan Ramana, but I saw that all the fingers of Ramana is fine. Oh, then he is directed to Ganapati Muni and he operates on those fingers and he puts a band-aid. Since because of the band-aid, Ganapati Muni is not able to write. And the day is approaching, the last day when he has to submit those verses to Uma has come, and the 200 verses are left and he is not able to write. So on that last day in the night, he sits down with 5 of his disciples, and on a higher place Ramana is sitting, and Ramana closes his eyes and is ever absorbed in the self, but becomes silent, and that silence is prevailing. And Ganapati Muni with his 5 disciples keeps dictating one line, that to each line in a different meter, each verse in a different meter. He starts dictating one line to each student, each disciple in a different meter. And once he's finished one round, he goes to the second round and starts dictating the second line to each of the students. And then again the third line and the fourth line. Like this goes on, and within no time, 200 verses, just like the flow of Ganga, is composed. And once the whole Uma Sahasram has been written and completed, Ganapati Muni slowly turns towards Ramana, who's sitting on a higher seat, and Ramana slowly opens his eyes and asks, Nayana, Ganapati Muni, has all that has been told noted down? Ramana says, have you noted all that has been told? And at that point of time, Ganapati Muni, who is turning like this, as if the ego is slowly rising. I have finished, accomplished this work, the pratigna that I had taken, I have accomplished. As soon before that ego could even appear, Ramana slayed that ego with his compassionate glance, saying, has all that has been told has been noted down? And Ganapati Muni realizes his folly, and he says, yes, Bhagavan, whatever has been spoken has been noted. So whatever happens, whatever comes from within, every action is actually the manifestation of the power within. We say, we have accomplished, we are doing this, we are doing that. But Ramana has come to slay that ego, because that ego does not have any power. It is only the middleman who is acting as if he is controlling the whole world. But actually the Supreme has already planned everything. Everything is already destined and everything is happening as planned. But when this ego arises and tries to obstruct the ever-flowing grace of Bhagavan with his compassionate glance, because he is a great cook, he slays that ego and makes one ready to be offered to the Supreme. And this is how the Uma Sahasram was completed. And it is told that the Ganapati Muni, the 800 verses which had been written, he revised it many times. It is told that it was forgot, the book was lost, and Ganapati Muni, with his memory, which was so great, he could create all the verses of Uma Sahasram, and there have been some modification and changes in all the 800 verses which Ganapati Muni had composed earlier. But there has been no change in those 200 verses which were composed in the presence of Ramana. Similarly, there is an instance of Muruganar Swami. Muruganar Swami, he wrote a Ramana Puranam, because in the Ramana Sannidhi Murai, which is equated to Tiruvachakam has all the songs. It's been written like Manikya Vachakar's Tiruvachakam, but there is no Shiva Puranam, the famous Shiva Puranam of Manikya Vachakar. There is no similar verse or similar work like the Shiva Puranam. So in the second edition of Ramana Sannidhi Murai, Muruganar Swami thinks that I should write an equivalent of Shiva Puranam. I should write it. So he wrote a beautiful set of verses called in the same lines of Shiva Puranam. And then he wondered, should I call this Shiva Puranam itself? Because Ramana himself is Shiva. So should I just call it Shiva Puranam? Or should I call it Ramana Puranam? Because this is talking about the greatness of Ramana. So he had this doubt. And with this doubt, he kept that draft that he had done in the presence of Ramana on the couch of Ramana and left. When he came back, Ramana had written many more verses and done some corrections and added more verses. And he had completed the work and also titled it Ramana Puranam. And not only the first page, but every page was titled Ramana Puranam. And Muruganatha Swami, who took that draft with the handwriting of Ramana, the verses written by Ramana, and the title Ramana Puranam, he was delighted, and Ramana has approved for this title Ramana Puranam. So he made a neat copy of that draft. And in that neat copy, he had made a small star and star sign in all the verses which was written by Bhagavan. And there was a note below this draft saying that these verses which has been marked with a star has been composed by Bhagavan Ramana. And when he gave that draft to Ramana, Ramana took and read the draft and said, "Oh, are only these verses which has been marked as star are written by Bhagavan? Only these verses have been written by Bhagavan?" And Muruganatha Swami, listening to this Upadesha from Bhagavan, was shaken. Then he understood, no Bhagavan, all the verses has been written by you. And he immediately corrected his mistake and he removed those marks and even that note saying that these are written by Bhagavan. Because anything, whether it was written by Ganapati Muni or Muruganatha Swami or anybody who is speaking is only doing it because of the ever-flowing grace of Bhagavan Ramana. This has to be understood. Nochuranna says that Ramana used to say, there is only grace, oi. Arulda irukku oi. Nee kuruka varade. You don't come in between the grace and disturb. And who is that who comes in between the grace? It is the ego which comes in between the grace and obstructs and says, this has to happen like this, that has to happen like this. And it is only complaining and worrying and creating fear in every one of us. And Ramana, with his compassionate glance, with his compassionate self-enquiry that he has given, the great Brahmastram that he has given, he is ever there and cutting this ego, slaying this ego at the very root and making this ego apt to be offered to the Supreme, the Parashiva. So Ganapati Muni rightly says, "Oh Ramana, you are the cook who has been created by the Supreme, who has come to our lives of all the sadhakas to slay our ego and offer it to that Parashiva who is there within each one of us, to offer that ego back to that Parashiva so that the ego also becomes Parashiva. And when that happens, Ramana himself, Ganapati Muni says, "Oh Ramana, your mind has been eaten up by the heart. Your ego has been eaten up by the heart. That's why you are ever reveling in the state of supreme bliss." So Ramana has come to bless us with that very same state where he is reveling in the state of bliss, which is eternal, which is ever there. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Ashtottaram, verses from Ramana Ashtottaram, which is written by Vishwanatha Swami. This will be shared by Dr. Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we in this part of the satsang are meditating on the Ramana Ashtottaram, or the litany of 108 names, which is composed by Vishwanatha Swami, and in which many of the names are biographical in nature. Many of the namas are biographical in nature. And as we have seen, they are more so in the first part of the Ashtottaram, until even Bhagavan has reached Arunachala. Pitripadan Vaishne Namaha, Indu Maulina Pitrimate Namaha, Pituradeshata Shona Shailam Praptaya Namaha, Tapomayaya Namaha. Then we get Udasina, Mahayogi, Mahotsaha, Kushagradhi, which are generally adjectives also. Shanta, Sankalpa, Samrambha, Susandrik, Savitra, Paramarthavit, Tivra. So you get all these. You get Savitre Namaha, Sthiraya Namaha, Tapakshapita Sarvangaya Namaha, Hullambuja Vilochanaya Namaha, Chandrikasta Hasashri, Manditana Mandalaya Namaha, which are all adjectives. But we saw how they are very appropriate to those years of Bhagavan, the early years of Bhagavan at Arunachala. But they are also generic. Then we get Chutavatyam Samasinaya Namaha. So the Chutavatyam is a mango grove. So when we see that Nama, Chutavatyam Samasinaya Namaha, we understand that Vishwanatha Swami is probably giving all these adjectives to the young Ramana who was there. And we remembered Bhagavan in those years. Then we got the Nama Churnita Akhila Vibhramaya Namaha. One who destroys all illusions. And we looked at it from the perspective of Mother Aragamma, Nelliyappayyar, Bhagavan's paternal uncle, young paternal uncle, and Mother Aragamma coming to take him back home, and how their efforts were in vain. Then we have Veda Vedanta Tattvajnaya Namaha. One who is aware of the essential truth of the Vedas and the Vedanta. And we looked at how Gambhiram Sheshayar and Shiva Prakasham Pillai also had come to Bhagavan. And so many actually came to Bhagavan to elicit the truth from him, elicit the essence of the truth from him, to get the elixir of self-knowledge from him, which is what is the tattva of the Veda and especially of the Vedanta. So what is the Vedanta? The Vedanta consists of all the Upanishads, which are all texts that give the teaching of being established in the self, of Atmanishtha. So we have that Nama, Veda Vedanta Tattvajnaya Namaha. And we began to also look at how meditation on each of these names is important for our sadhana. And we found that when we meditate on the Nama, Veda Vedanta Tattvajnaya Namaha, we reaffirm our faith in Bhagavan's words. We were just listening to Ujwal Jagadeesh talking about the Ramana Puranam, we were about the Uma Sahasram, how all these are the words of Bhagavan, the section of Uma Sahasram, those last few verses, the last 200 verses, and of course the Ramana Puranam composed by Muruganar, this composed Uma Sahasram composed by Muni, and we have Bhagavan's own words. We have the Upadesa Saram, we have the Ulladinarpad, and we have Bhagavan's answers in Ramana Gita, we have the Arunachala Sati Panchakam, and we have the Nanyar, Vichara Sangraham, all these corrected by Bhagavan and written in the essay format, in the question-answer format, in the collected works of Bhagavan. And we have the Arunachala Stuti Panchakam. So the works of Bhagavan, each of the works of Bhagavan, if we take any verse of Bhagavan, whether the original or sometimes a translation like the Annabodham, Hastamalaka, Dakshinamurti Stotram, other translations, Devika Lotaram. So we have these translated works of Bhagavan. Any of these works, if we take up even one verse from these works, what do they communicate? What does that verse communicate it will communicate the essence of the Vedanta. So, Vishwanath Swami says here, Veda Vedanta Tattvajnaya Namaha. And it also, meditating on that name, reaffirms our faith in Bhagavan. We may be unable to study the entire Vedas, but Bhagavan's words are more than enough for us. Meditating on Bhagavan's words is more than enough for us. And rather, even meditating on Bhagavan's single phrase, even one single word, is more than enough for us. So that is the clarity which this Nama brings to us. And it also brings to us the clarity that this is a purpose for which we are bonded to Bhagavan. This is the purpose for which He has entered our lives, to give us that essence, that truth of the Vedas. That is why He has become embodied, says Satyamangalam Venkatramayar. That is what He is giving to us. That elixir is what He is giving to us, and we need to drink in that elixir. We should not become ourselves an obstacle to the flow of grace that is feeding us this elixir of the Vedanta. And how is He giving this to us? Chinmudrine Namaha. Chinmudrine. He is having the Chinmudra. He is holding the Chinmudra like Dakshinamurti on the right hand. We saw the joining of the forefinger and the thumb. Now this mudra is symbolic of Dakshinamurti. It is symbolic of the Chit uniting with the Sat. In Upadesa Saram, Bhagavan says, Sattvabhasika Chitkva Vetara Sattaya hi Chit Chittaya hyaham. So there is no differentiation between the Sat and the Chit. The Sat and the Chit are really one and the same. Sattaya hi Chit. Sat is Chit and Chit is Sat. Chit is Aham. Aham means what? Aham means the Sat. So Sattaya hi Chit, Chittaya hi. It is said that if there is existence without consciousness, existence that is not self-aware, of what use is that existence? The existence will not even be known. Without Chit, there will be no awareness of the existence. But if there is no existence at all, what is one to be aware of? So the Sat and the Chit are two aspects of the same truth. They are intertwined in an indelible manner, in an unchangeable manner. So that is the way the Sat and the Chit are united. In other words, we call it the union of Shiva and Shakti, the Ardhanari Tattva. So that is the Chinmudra. That is the awareness, the self-awareness. Chinmudra, when the moment one thinks of Chinmudra, it stands for self-awareness. It also stands for the sharing of that self-awareness by Dakshinamurti. In later namas, Vishwanatha Swami actually refers to Bhagavan as Dakshinamurti, Dakshinasya Nibhaha, Dakshinabhimukhaha. So here he is specifically talking about the Chinmudra, that emblem of grace, that emblem of union of the self with the Shiva Tattva, with the Atma Tattva. And that is what Bhagavan embodies. We find that even in later years, But more so at that time, Bhagavan's self-abidance was experienced potently by everyone who came into his presence. It may even be some monkeys who were there. Bhagavan would invite them by his force, by his spiritual force, to come and meditate in his presence. And in case any one monkey also got disturbed, he would say, "Oh, Yenda Rajyam Kolla Pordu, which kingdom are you losing by moving away from the self? What is it that you propose to gain by your thoughts? Which kingdom are you going to conquer with your plans, your thinking force?" So that is how strong that presence was. And we have people like Mastan Sahib who would go into Samadhi even as they approach the gate of Virupaksha cave. That is the strength of Bhagavan's Atmanishtha at all times. That is the word Chinmudrine Namaha. This Chinmudra is not something which Bhagavan holds physically, though he does sometimes hold it also. As I said, like this, we see it in some of the pictures. But the Chinmudra, Dileep shared with me, happens even through Bhagavan's eyes. That drishti, that being, the very being of Bhagavan is a Chinmudra. Chinmudrine Namaha. Not only one who holds the Chinmudra, but one who is the Chinmudra. One whose very life is for the broadcasting of the power of self-knowledge. So that is what Bhagavan says to Arunachala. You gave me your own state of bliss. Before I could fall into the ocean of samsara, you just picked me up, you made me your own. You gave me that experience of the self. Why? Sharika Tanmayam, Shivaka Chinmayam, Sharika Tanmayam. The Chinmaya and Tanmaya. The union of these two is Chinmudra. Shivaka Chinmayam. For the consciousness to shine even brighter, and for existence to live ever, to be ever experienced. Like Muruganar Swami says of Bhagavan, Vari, Vari, Vari. And Bhagavan also says, and Muruganar says of Arunachala also, Vargavan Arunachalavan Prayer. So let Arunachala live forever. Vari, Vari. Let Ramana live forever. And Bhagavan says, Sharika Tanman. Sharika. For it to be famous everywhere. For it to be more and more powerful, if such a thing is possible. Can existence and consciousness become more powerful? But Bhagavan says, in order that they are experienced in a more powerful manner, O Arunachala, you gave me your own state. That is the Chinmudrine Namaha. To show to every one of us the glory of self-abidance. That is the purpose of every moment of Bhagavan's life. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri.
We will now have the chanting of Aksharamanamalai by Srimati V. Radha, accompanied by Vallabh Shri.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. சோம்பிய சும்மா சுகமுண்டுறங்கிடு சொல்வேரங்கதி அருணாச்சலா. சௌரியம் காட்டினை சழக்கற்றதென்று சலியாதிருந்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. நமலிய கேடா நான் என்னுறுதிய நாடி நின்னுருவேன் அருணாச்சலா. ஞானம் இல்லாதும் ஆசையற்றவர ஞானம் தெரி தருணாச்சலா. நிம்மரு பொனியும் மலர்நிலை என்று நேர் நின்றன என் அருணாச்சலா. தத்துவம் தெரியாத தனை ஊற்றார் தத்துவம் இதுவென் அருணாச்சலா. தானே தானே தத்துவம் இதனை தானே காட்டுவாய் அருணாச்சலா. திரும்பி அகந்தனை தினமாக கண்காண் தெரியும் என்றனையன் அருணாச்சலா. தீரமில்லகத்தில் தேடி உந்தனையா திரும்ப உற்றேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. துப்பறிவில்லாய் பிற பெண் பயன் ஒப்பிடவாயின் அருணாச்சலா. தூய்மன மொழிய தோயும் உண்மையாம் தோயவே அருளன் அருணாச்சலா. தெய்வம் என்றுன்னை சாரவே என்னை சேர ஒழித்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ
அருணாச்சலா.
அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமண.
Namo Ramana. We will conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara puja to Bhagwan. The Ashtottara puja will happen at Sri Dileep Simha's altar. The Ashtottaram will be chanted by Vaibhavji, Prarthanama and Uma Shripati. We will conclude this offering with the Arati to Bhagwan and the Arati song. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं रघीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः. ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोर्णशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ॐ तपोमयाय नमः. ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ च्यूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजदशलाकृतये नमः ॐ उद्दिक्तनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिभाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः ॐ सौम्याय नमः ॐ आत्मवते नमः ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः ॐ महाभागाय नमः ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः ॐ विनताय नमः ॐ विनुताय नमः ॐ विप्राय नमः ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ हृच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्य तत् दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे. नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೂಡಿಗಾರನಿ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ महर्षि नमो महर्षि बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Jai.